Welcome to Google Cloud FHIR APIs. I'm your host, Melinda Stewart from HL7. Our moderator for this session on Whova is Omar Shaker. I'd now like to introduce our speakers for today, Vivian Neilley and Kalyan Pamarath from Google. Vivian, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. So just a little bit of an overview today. We're going to be provisioning everyone in this call a Google Cloud project and password for the project and free resources for the project. And the way that we're going to be doing this is if you fill out that form, the bit link that is at the top, it will send to me and I will be live registering folks. There are some individuals, and thank you for those who already pre-registered. You will already have access to this lab. So you can go ahead to number 2 and try out that explore.quicklabs.com. For those who did not pre-register, go ahead and fill out that form and I will start registering folks as they come in. As far as what we're going to be running through today on the environment will be open for a full week. So you can come back, you can take it again, you can play around a little bit more. This is going to be open for all individuals who are being registered and has been open since Monday. So feel free to play around a little bit. We're specifically going to be going over some of the general functionalities of the healthcare API. So we're going to be importing, exporting, both streaming and bulk export. We'll be testing the de-identification. We're going to be testing some operations such as search, and then we're also going to be both querying and building or exploring some of the dashboards on top of FHIR data. So we have a lot to show today. We're really excited, and feel free. I currently have 33 people registered and I see 94 on the call. So I am going to guess that some people are still registering, and that's fine. I'll get them as they come in. And I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to kind of fill out that form, and then I'll launch into live demonstrating what we're going to go through. Okay. So I have a few more, about 50 individuals registered now. For those who just added their access, if you could go ahead and test at explore.quicklabs.com, you should have access to the environment now. And you are able to unmute, so if you are having trouble accessing that, feel free to speak up and let us know and we can hopefully answer your question. Okay, so I have about almost 60. So I'll go ahead and get started. I believe if you still don't have access, feel free to just ping, once I do this final run, ping the group and or ping the chat for Zoom, and I am happy to give access to the email that you provide. Once I do this last bulk upload. In previous DevDays years, we've usually handed around the computer and everybody just signed up. This has been a little bit more exciting. Alrighty. Okie dokie. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. If anyone, again, doesn't have access, feel free to let me know, and I ping it in the chat, and I will get you access during this call. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Alrighty, so this is the home environment of the Google Cloud Console. What we are going to be doing today is essentially walking through how to stand up the environment, how to set your variables, build a FHIR store, things like that. Folks will be able to get here after some pop-ups that come through. You can just click confirm through most of those things. That's your typical get started on Google Cloud. The first step that has really anything of substance is starting our variables. So this is step number 2 in define environmental variables for those who are there. We are, in order to access the Cloud Shell, this button right here is how I got here. It'll take a little bit to provision. You'll have to accept that it's free, and then it will go ahead and start that. So once the variables are provisioned, we're going to go over to the healthcare pane. The healthcare data browser is really what it's called. This healthcare browser is the UI for our healthcare API. And here you can see it allows me to see a couple of things, both the browser and the marketplace. I have pre-enabled the API, so I'm able to see immediately this pane. You might have to enable your API first, and then it will load into this screen. We're going to be creating a data set. The data set is dataset 1, region, US Central. These two are really important because these are variables we just set. So we defined our data set as 1 and our region as US Central. Later in the lab, you're going to see that becomes pretty important when we are doing patching commands and updating commands. So make sure that you're double checking your spelling. A lot of the time when users are running into errors, what they're truly running into is a spelling error, or perhaps their variables are not defined correctly, anything like that. So this will take a second to spin up, and then once the data set's up, just so folks are aware, the logical hierarchy of this is you build a data set, and then within that data set you build a data store. And the data store can be both, or all a DICOM, HL7, or a FHIR store. So all of our logical data models, essentially, or data standards, are housed within a data set. So this is the largest umbrella term within the healthcare API that we'll be creating subsections of within. Great, so once that's here, you can click on dataset 1 and go ahead and view it. We are going to be creating our first FHIR store. So go ahead and create a data store. Again, you can see I can create all 3 of these. We're going to be using FHIR today. We are going to call it FHIR store 1, again with checking spelling. We will be creating a pub sub topic. This can be, we actually are not leveraging this today, but this is just a good practice for if you want to build messaging hooks or notification hooks or database updates, things like that, your pub/sub topic is really what listens to changes of the database. And the data we're importing is R4. We're actually going to create a second data store once we've done the first one. And this is because we're going to also de-identify our data. So in order to de-identify the data, you need to have a secondary store for it to land in, because we'll de-identify the whole data store and insert it into a new data store. So I've called this DID. Again, double check spelling, make sure that this is really what you're seeing on your screen as well. No need for a pub/sub topic on the de-identified side. So now we're going to go back to the Cloud Shell. This is your terminal command line within Google Cloud. We are going to be creating our BigQuery set. So really what this command does, and for those who are following along, I'm on Create BigQuery Data Sets. Step 1. So you can see I'm creating Make Data Set with my project ID and my data set ID. This is really where the data is going to land once we have exported it and where we're going to see streaming data land. So we're going to create a second one for the de-identified data set. And once that's done, we're going to provision our correct security controls. So the correct permissions for us to be able to export and import and access these. So I need job user, and the other one was a data editor, I believe. Now what we'll be doing is a patch command. So this command could be really useful when your data store is already, or your healthcare API is already up and running and you're just looking to change the functionality slightly. So we're actually patching ours to be able to allow for streaming data. And I'll go ahead and run this. We're going to stream it with the analytics schema. So you can see it's defining that right there. Next, we'll be loading data in. So this is the gcloud command. It's an import. I have preset, I'm going to go ahead and run this actually, preset the data that we're bringing in. So this is in a Google Cloud storage bucket that I have loaded R4 data, Cynthia data into. So it might take a couple of minutes, but what we can do, along with it running on your command line or the Google Cloud Shell, you can also see it running in the Operations tab. So you can see which of yours have been successful, which of your operations have been successful, how long they took, when they started, when they ended, what they were. So we'll give that a little bit to complete. I was always told, actually I was told about 15 minutes ago I had to bring a joke for when these operations are running, and I didn't have time to prepare, but I think I can. Kalyan, do you have a joke for this? Or maybe, maybe you'll be take off the hotspot and this will import in time.
Hey, I got a good joke for you. This is Melinda.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you asked for a joke. So why did the cucumber blush?
Gosh, I don't know.
Because I saw the salad dressing.
I
got a little laugh. All right, that's all. That's all I got.
A good dad joke. A good dad joke. And also, just for those who perhaps were late in adding their emails, I also just added you, so you should be able to access the explore.quicklabs.com environment. Alrighty, so we can see this is done on our command line. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be searching for a particular individual within the FHIR set. So we are searching for someone whose family name is Buckridge, I believe. And this search functionality, it's great. We also support chained parameters. We support reverse chaining. We support complex searching. There's a lot of functionalities that we've released in our documentation for our search functionalities. So you can see this, we had a match, and this is what it returns. So this is basically the FHIR resource with that particular family named, I believe the patient resource with the family name Buckridge is returned here as their JSON object. So we're going to go back to the UI now that we have data loaded, and we are going to go to our FHIR store. Here we can de-identify the FHIR store. So we're going to take this and we're going to drop it in the de-identification and hit append. It's worth noting this is the general remove all, redact all, date shift all operation. We are also adding to the UI ability to configure this. If you would like to configure it to be more custom, so you would like to keep certain things or hash certain things or date shift certain things, all of that functionality is available today. It's available through the API command calls. So right now within the data browser, the current is kind of the default, but we are adding functionality in the UI. And if you like that kind of, or if you have the need for further functionality and further configurations of your de-identification, all of that is available with calling the API. Great. So we can, again, watch the de-identification happen for the de-identify FHIR store. I'm going to go ahead and do 2 operations at once for the sake of time so we can make sure we're moving along. Feel free to take your time for folks that are following along, but I'm going to export our main FHIR store to BigQuery. So I'm, again, exporting with that analytics. This is going to be a bulk export. We're going to test the streaming export after this particular command. Right, let me just. Great, and you can see here, so our de-identification was successful and finished. So I will be exporting the de-identification data set next. Like I should have brought music to follow me along with. So for those who are curious what we are doing, exporting to BigQuery, BigQuery is available under the Big Data tab. We call this the hamburger. So the hamburger has a BigQuery functionality. It's our managed database. It takes SQL. It's really our managed data warehouse because it's horizontally scalable underneath, but it's you have the ability to write SQL against it. So it can take petabytes of data against it. And it's actually a really powerful tool that I suggest anyone who is following along with the lab, when it's done or in future, if you have time later, go ahead and play around with BigQuery some. It can be a really, really awesome set or tool to use. So that finished true. I'm now going to export my de-identified data, and I will let that run in the background. So here's our project. This is our data set. You can see all of the resources that I exported are going to come in as tables. So we can go look at, for example, the patient table and see the data that we've recently exported. There's schema here. There's a preview functionality. This can be really powerful when you are looking to kind of understand the table, but not actually query the table. So this is a free view that allows you to essentially figure out what you have, what data you have, things like that, without actually querying against the database. I am going to query this table. Go ahead and run it, limit it so that it's a quicker query. And I'm basically calling patient ID, given name, family name, and birthday. So what you can see here is we have 10 patients. Again, this is Cynthia data, so they're all look a little a little funny, and they're all going to be from Massachusetts, but this is what the data that we pulled is currently having. And so what we'll be able to do is compare this against the de-identified data set and see really that one-to-one comparison of what's left and what we still have and what happened to what we still have when it's complete. So we can over here. The nice thing about BigQuery is it will give you lots of metadata about all of your information. Oh, we can take this one. And around, as we all know and love, FHIR has lots of arrays and nests and records and structs and things like that. So you actually can see your whole schema when using BigQuery. Let's see. All right, so our de-identified set is done. I'm going to run this. And you can see with the de-identified set that we exported, this given name, family name is entirely redacted, and the birth dates have been shifted. So this is a great functionality for those who have researchers that they work with, or really, truly any need to kind of do data sharing that has, that with users with limited function or access. So now what we're going to do is we are going to test the streaming functionality. For those who remember, we patched the database to allow for streaming configs. So what I'm going to do is I'm querying my identified data set right now for someone with the last name Smith. And this didn't return anything. As expected, I actually haven't imported Smith yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to call the API, basically post to the API. Oop, not FaceTime. Oh, sorry. We're going to post to the API user patient Smith. So you can see Darcy Smith, it has just been added to my FHIR API. And so in order to test that, we're going to go back. We are going to make sure that we are not using cached results, otherwise it will come back with nothing. We will run this. And there we go. So within, obviously streaming export is sub-second, and I'm not able to do things that fast. But you can see within seconds of each other, the Darcy Smith did show up into our API. And so that was kind of a quick example of some of our streaming functionalities. So the final bit that we're gonna walk through is actually a functionality that we recently acquired. So for those who are familiar, we have a recent acquisition with Looker. And the great thing about Looker is it has a semantic layer between FHIR data and Looker that essentially allows you to run all these queries and it builds all these queries and builds interactive dashboards without actually having to understand the underlying data set. So if you have, for example, business users who are not familiar with FHIR and there's a learning curve with using it perhaps, you can send them over to Looker, and there is a wonderful ability to query against FHIR without ever understanding the underlying data model. And the best thing about this is really some BI tools have in-memory data stores. Looker is actually real-time querying against directly where the data lives. So it's always going to be up to date. You don't have to store a secondary data layer anywhere. It is querying against BigQuery as we are looking at it actually. And so this can be really powerful. Right now, this is going against our public data set. We have a Cynthia data set on our public BigQuery public marketplace. And so you can actually test this out, go through this dashboard, look at it a bit. And I also included a link for our public BigQuery dataset program. So here's kind of an admin view over FHIR data. You can see BMI, comorbidities. I really like the readmission causes. This is a fun one to play with for those who are trying this at home. I'll go into a little bit of drill into some of these tiles that we have. So I'm going to go into our diabetes and hypertension patients. We can see here all of the patients, again, they're all Massachusetts patients, when their latest encounter was, things like that. If I want to follow up with Gustavo, for example, I actually have the ability to do that right within Looker. I can also filter information on him, but I'm actually just going to go into a patient overview. And this patient overview, you know, we can see lots about him, how often we've seen him, how many years we've seen him for, things like that. But, you know, he's not that interesting of a patient. So what if I want to go look at a different patient? I can go ahead and look for, let's see. I think he's been seen a lot. So let me try him. Let's see. I spelled the same right. Oh, I did not. Let's see. Actually, it will pull something up here, so I'm gonna. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna drive. There we go. Perfect. So, or you could just use the URL hack. So, this particular patient, she's been seen lots of times, and you can see the, you know, a timeline like this. Usually, you can drill down to where she's been seen. This is the last place that she was seen. Her patient ID, a lot of around her vital signs, diagnoses, dates, things like this. So this kind of a drill down into the patient can be really valuable, especially for FHIR data when you're basically attaching one patient ID to the patient. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing because that is the end of our lab that I had for today. Can I answer any questions, or is there a queue already? Questions, perhaps?
Yeah, we've been answering some questions on the WOA app, but if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask at this point, or if you have any clarifications to the answers we've given there.
You didn't want to surprise me with any curveballs?
Nope.
Was there anyone who was unable to get access that I can add? Y'all are an easy group. Okay. Well, I don't know if the protocol is to end early if nobody has questions. The lab will be open for, again, another week, so folks can feel free to play around. I'm also available and happy to answer questions offline for those that are maybe not following along right now, but want to try this at home. Happy to help out.
Yeah, and we'll stay on for the next 8 minutes in case anyone has questions.
Awesome. Well, Vivian, that was a really great demo. Very impressive. And I really appreciate your time. And Kalyan, appreciate your time today. Omar Shaker, who's on OVA as our moderator, thank you for joining us. And we hope you have a great last day and join us later for more exciting stuff. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Linda.